This is the Shoot at the Hip podcast, and on this edition, we're going to be continuing the countdown of my top greatest matches of all time. We started off at number 7, which was Bret versus Owen Hart in a steel cage match. Now, if you have not checked out that video, I encourage you to do so. I talked a little bit about Bret versus Owen, brother versus brother. That is my number 7 greatest match of all time. Now we're moving forward to number 6, a match that had some of everything. I mean, it could not get more personal than this. Kevin Sullivan versus Chris Benoit, Great American Bash, Falls Count Anywhere. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I understand about Chris Benoit. We all know about the very tragic events that happened, in 2007, Chris Benoit murdering his wife and his son inside of their house, a weekend, a straight insanity, a murder and senseless acts. But I don't want to focus on Chris Benoit, the murderer. I want to focus on Chris Benoit, the wrestler. And Chris Benoit, the wrestler, was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. I mean, if Chris Benoit would have just had a heart attack in his house, the guy would have been a no-brainer to be in the Hall of Fame. Had a very, very decorated career. And honestly, a lot of people can say his career started at this particular point. He went up against Kevin Sullivan. Now, if you're not familiar with Kevin Sullivan, a very, very underrated wrestler in his own right. He worked in WCW. He worked as a booker. And one of the ideas that Kevin Sullivan had was to put Chris Benoit together with his real-life wife, which was a woman named Woman. Now, honestly, Chris Benoit was told that Woman would be his valet. Well, due to the fact that they were spending all the time together and stuff like that and on the road, they ended up having an affair. The true story. And the two had an affair, and it caused a rift, of course, between Kevin Sullivan and Chris Benoit, which led to some of the most classic matches of all time. One in particular, this match at the Great American Bash. You got real life stories, man. Nothing is better when it comes to the booking when something is real. We think about the Matt Hardy versus Edge leader situation. We all understand that. That was some very, very good stuff due to the fact that it hit so close to home. But messing around with a man's wife, taking his wife away from him, because we know that Chris Benoit ended up marrying her. And, it don't get no personal than that. This match started off, they were all over the place, man. This was one of those matches where, it started in the ring, but it ended up like everywhere. I'm talking about in the bathroom. I'm talking about in the concession stand. These guys tore the house down. And for the fact that they can actually, keep their composure and their professionalism in order for them to have a great match like this, you got to give a lot of respect to both of the guys, especially Kevin Sullivan, man. Think about this. You are going up against a guy who stole your wife from you. Think about that, man. It'll be hard for you to keep your composure in order for you to have a classic match like this. These guys, they battled everywhere. They had some very, very classic matches. They fought, more than one occasion, but this match just kind of stood out because Falls Count Anywhere matches, honestly, we never seen anything like it. They had Falls Count Anywhere matches in the past, but just never to this magnitude where two individuals were just fighting all over the place, man. And for those that have not seen the match, of course, you can go to the WWE Network. But we all know that the WWE Network doesn't really focus on Chris Benoit. It's one of those things where you actually have to know that Chris Benoit is on the card because, you can't go and search for it. But it is the Great American Bash, 1996. Check it out. I think it's maybe like the second to last match of the evening. And the guys really tore the house down. It is definitely worth the watch. But I know that Chris Benoit is not the greatest thing to be talking about, but I am going to give credit where credit is due. Chris Benoit is still one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. I'm not condoning the acts that he did, but you got to give credit where credit is due when he was in a 20 by 20 ring. And this has been the Shoot at the Hip podcast. I ask that you please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also follow me on Twitter at TJJones8. Man, go ahead and like my video, man. Go ahead, give me a thumbs up. Hey, I ain't even mad at you if you give me a thumbs down. And comment down below. Let me know your number 6 greatest match of all time. Thank you all for checking out the Shoot at the Hip podcast. And of course, like always, I'll see you down the road.